Welcome to the Hidden Self. My name's Chris and this is the second video in our series Thoughts Controlling Things. I really want to sort of focus on what we are trying to achieve in this series of video. And it's really about, can the power of thoughts interact with an object and move it? Now, the reason I use these two previous examples is because all we're doing is looking at the foundations of thoughts interacting and then reacting to something, an object, or to our biological cells, or stimulating our brain in a certain way. And all we're doing now is looking at whether or not it's our body that's controlling our thinking. And that happens if we're in a survival mode, or if we're starving, or if we are dying of thirst. Our body takes over our mind. In the case of nocebo and placebo, it is our mind that is controlling our body. But in both cases, all we're doing is we're having a connection, a relationship that creates a reaction. One, from an external point of view, is stimulating our thinking to a point of intensity and driving that intensity to create a chemical reaction. But what is actually happening with the placebo and nocebo? Is it intensity, or is it a certain profile, a certain oscillation or frequency of thinking that interacts with a biological cell to change it, to cure us of cancer, or to end up killing us just through our pure thoughts? So today we're going to talk about nocebo in a little bit more detail. And the story I'm about to tell you is a true one. A couple of years ago, there was an engineer that was working on these large freight train refrigerator compartments. They are part of those long haul trains that go below freezing. And one of these compartments was broken. The thermostat had broken. So he was called out to fix it. And while he was fixing it, he was accidentally locked in. And after banging and banging and banging, no one heard him, the train left. So he was inside this refrigeration compartment that he has just fixed. And in his mind's eye, the refrigeration compartment's going to go below 0 Celsius. And he knows from his training that he's got about 8 hours to live before he dies of hypothermia. And we know this because he left notes while he was actually experiencing this. And over a period of 12 hours, he wrote notes to say that he could feel himself going numb, that his fingers were going numb, and that he was slowly dying of hypothermia. And he would write these messages down. And it got to about the 8th hour, and if you like, the kind of sands through the hourglass through his mind's eye was slowly trickling away to a point where, he was down to his last couple of minutes, and his final note was that he could feel himself dying of hypothermia, and that this was possibly his last note. And in the morning, they found his body. Now, the thing is with this story is that he never fixed the thermostat. The temperature in the train actually didn't get below 10 degrees C. Yet his belief actually dictated the reality that he was living in, to a point where it actually killed him. This whole series is about our two different realities. That we have the power to create an internal reality that affects us and reacts to us so much that it ends up shutting down our biological body. And so this concept about our ability to first connect, then transmit, right, a thought in a certain way that contains information or a message that then is acted out on, that causes a reaction. So what I want to do is set a baseline. I want to set a kind of a phenomenon, an example where all we're doing is saying how I connect with something that actually stimulates it to a point where it will actually change. Now, if we can get to that point, then we can actually try to work out or to enhance that relationship to actually maybe move that object. And the power of our thoughts to actually move the things that we are interacting with or connecting with. Now, there was a guy who lived about 100 odd years ago called Nikola Tesla. He had this idea that you could destroy any physical object through a hammer. And what he meant by that is that just by tapping an object at a certain rate, at a certain frequency, that ground wave, because that's what it is, it's anything that travels through an object as such is classed as a ground wave. So an earthquake generates ground waves that then are rippled through the ground. So by hitting this object with a hammer, it is causing a ground wave to pass through it. And what this guy's idea was, what Nikola Tesla's idea was, that if you hit it at a certain oscillation, at a certain frequency, a certain tempo, that the power or the strength of the oscillation would start to break the physical structure. It would actually start to interfere with the molecular structure of the material. And that's what we're talking about with nocebo, if you think about it. We're talking about our internal reality controlling a physical form in a way that changes the actual structure of that form to a point that I can trigger an allergy or I can close my body down. But it's an interaction that's a communication that's causing a reaction through thought, through a belief system. And what I believe is that the oscillation at a certain tempo of a relentless belief has the effect to change physical form. So it's not so much the intensity of the thought, but it's the continuation, it's the persistence. And you only get persistence of a thought if it's a firm belief and you play it over and over and over again. You wake up with that belief. You go to bed with that belief. You have an idea about what's happening. And over a period of time, those ideas start manifesting, start creating, start to create themselves, start to form themselves into a physical form in whichever thing that you're engaging with. And with the case of nocebo, it's your physical biological cells. So in the next video, we're going to be looking at this concept in a lot more detail about our internal self to our internal reality and what can we actually control in that environment to then produce our external self in the way that we interact with our external reality. Because that's what we really want to do. We want to sync up every dimension within our life to our internal self, to our internal reality, to our external self, to our external reality. And if we line those up, all of a sudden we have an enormous amount of control about how we experience this life, what we think about this life, but also drive ourselves in a way that gives us complete control about how we want to live our life and connect with people and think about things and engage with things in a way that really relates that our thoughts really matter to the absolute nth degree. Our thoughts really do matter, and how we think affects that whole chain, and it comes back to us. So whatever you're putting out there is actually coming back. If I feel angry about something, I have to be in a state to communicate that anger, and then I look for something to kind of place that anger on. And that vibration, that inner world of mine, actually feeds back onto myself. What we want to be doing is living more harmoniously through the oscillations of our thinking.